Hi there. In this lecture, we're going to have a look at a game of Bobby Fischer against Celle in 1964. This was actually a clock simul game and a very, very interesting one. It was actually featured in Fischer's 60 Memorable Games book. So one of the 3 Italian game-related games there. So 2 were with the Evans Gambit and the other one was with the 2 knights variation. So very interesting. Okay, so we have knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. This is an Evans Gambit example. Fischer plays b4. So after bishop takes b4, c3, this is the Anderson variation going back to e7. So that is Adolf Anderson, historically, who would have played this, who did play this. So here we have d4. This is an accurate move. d6. Now this is a slight inaccuracy. It's interesting to know how to punish this because it seems like a move a lot of players would play in practice. Knight a5 is actually better. Bishop drops back, then d6, and after d takes, this position, for example, we win e5, but the queen's coming off f5. Black's actually better. We're equal on pawns and we've got structural issues with our pawn structure. Black's got good pieces. Okay, so yeah, I know the knight's on a5, but still it's kind of relevant for c4 in front of that isolated pawn. Black's actually doing pretty well there. So yeah, knight a5. Yeah, we would consider other options. We don't have to play d takes e5. So anyway, d6 though, very interesting. D takes e5. This should be equal. Queen b3 does seem to get a small edge. It's difficult for black to defend f7. If black plays knight a5, we can just take on f7 and play queen a4 here. And although black does have the bishop pair, overall we are better here because of the king displacement on f7. Overall we should be better here, slightly better at least. But d takes was played. Now knight takes is an inaccuracy. On d takes, queen b3 is a small edge. But in fact, black does best to play more dynamically here with bishop g4. Just counters pawn sack. If e takes, bishop takes. This should be an even position. No problems for black. Black's got the more solid pawn structure. So anyway, knight takes e5 is actually an inaccuracy. We have knight takes e5, d takes. Now a very powerful move here. What would you play here for 10 points? Okay, so there's different ways of attacking f7. We can actually indulge the f7 soft spot. We don't necessarily want the exchange of queens. So queen h5 keeps the queens on, looks at f7, looks at e5. So yes, this looks really good. We have g6, queen takes e5, knight f6, and now bishop a3. So the black king has been kept in the center. Rook f8. Now actually there was a resourceful way for black to castle here, which is looking like a really strange move, but it is actually possible. Can you see for 10 points? Actually, bishop e6 was possible, and if bishop takes, black just castles here, and say the bishop moves back, then taking on a3, and then rook e8, and black gets sufficient play to secure a draw here. This position, for example, knight takes f2, queen d2 check, black's going to get a perpetual check situation for a draw. So that is a fascinating way for black to play bishop e6. And if we had taken on e7, we're just going into a pin there. And this situation is also just even. So bishop e6 does seem like a good move. But rook f8 was played. White castles. Knight g4. Queen g3. So we have bishop takes a3. Knight takes a3. Queen e7. So it appears as though the knight's been asked to move. And in fact, Fischer does play a multi-purpose move, which is, we've seen in some other historical games, where a bishop can sometimes move, and it will be multi-purpose sometimes, because it's vacating c4 for that knight. with that knight on a3. The knight wants to use c4. Now, Fischer played bishop b5 check, so we can see, yeah, it's not just a check, it's vacating c4. If knight b5, this is also a decent enough move here. The bishop could drop back, the knight could go to d4 with advantage for white. This would be a decent position. Knight c2 though, queen e5 is not so good for white. What do we actually do here? We can't easily avoid the exchange of queens. We can't move the queen without queen takes h2 checkmate. And if we played f4 here, this would be annoying. Queen c5 check, and we'd end up losing c4. So yeah, knight c2 is not so good. So either knight b5 or what is played is really interesting. Bishop b5 check. So c6 creates that weakness of the last move, d6, and the knight just hops it, ready to hop in, offering the bishop. Yeah, if the bishop moved back, just queen takes a3, no problem for black. That's just big advantage there. So knight c4 is the key point. We have queen e6. Black should have, it seems, accepted the piece sack. So this position, maybe the best rook to use here is not the f1 but the a1. And here now c4, trying to open things up, black trying to keep things closed. If we look at this position, it's not entirely clear this is a forced checkmate or anything. White does have a small edge overall with better prospects. So this is the way that black should have played. But black played, it seems, yeah, this is a very bad idea, queen e6, because now rook ad1 is looking at key squares around the opponent's king. And after c takes, there's a super powerful move now played. Can you see what it is for 10 points? It's really wrapping around all the escape squares of the opponent's king, as well as threatening a mating one with rook d8 or queen d8. Those are the two mate threats. We have bishop d7, knight d6 check, king e7, and now a really fantastic move here. I mean, this is an amazing simul game. This is a really fantastic tactical idea. For 100 points, what would you play here? It's incredible. It's based on the fact, we say the king and the queen, they're not very good protecting pieces to protect other bits. And knight f5 check is played. It exposes the e-file to that king. Now, one point here is if king f6, we just play for 10 points. Yeah, rook d6, we just pin the queen. So actually this is now opening up the e-file. So g takes is basically forced. But now we've got this e-file. So both rooks having these lovely open files. And you might think, well, the queen can be just kicked out, right? The queen doesn't have to move. So rook ac8. If queen takes f5, queen d6 check. And this is a big problem here. If king e8, rook fe1 check, that pin is there, meaning queen d7 is checkmate. And the other thing is, if king d8, we just scoop up both rooks, we're in a winning position. There's no sting at the end of the tail here. So yeah, so black tries rook a to c8. Now, yeah, the king is not a good protector, and that level of that risky idea of the king protecting something is exposed here with great clarity. What would you play here for 10 points? Very instructive tactics. Yeah, rook takes d7 check. So it's only the king protecting the queen. Now, how to nudge the king away from the queen? So Fischer kind of was checking out two moves here, it seems, and he found the stronger move. So what's the strongest move here? The strongest move is f6 check to try and nudge the queen away from the king. If rook e1 check, there is knight e5 here. And after rook takes e5, king f6, we can take the queen, but then king takes e5. It leaves black with two rooks against the queen. Now, this is better for white, this situation. But yeah, there's a principle. If you see a strong move, look for an even stronger one. And actually compare queen versus 2 rooks with this version of events with f6 check now. Brilliant move. Dragging the knight back and forcing black to occupy f6, basically taking out the escape square. Because what else? If king takes, we are just taking the queen. If king e8, we are playing rook e1 check. And here, okay, delay, and then we're going to be mating. That's checkmate. So knight takes basically forced rook e1 check. And now this is basically forced knight e4. Rook takes e4 check. So the difference is we've got an extra rook in this version of events. Rook fd8, and now Fischer plays queen g4, not finding the strongest move, but it doesn't matter. It does control d1. There was actually a forced mate in 4 here. Can you see what the forced mate in 4 is? 10 points. Yeah, queen e7 check. King g6, rook g4 check. King f5, rook g5 check. King f4, queen e5 is checkmate, forced mate in 4. So yes, but the game, yeah, for a simple game, this is an amazingly interesting, creative game. We do see a great punishment of what could be, a continuation players play, with d6. So this is really interesting. The idea is here, queen h5, then this bishop a3, and then here with a knight on a3, yeah, it's asking for knight c4 as one of the kind of key ideas, if we can try and incorporate the key idea of the knight coming to c4, and that is done with brilliant effect with this bishop b5 check, offering a whole bishop, getting that knight to go into d6 potentially. So yeah, a brilliant start to a brilliant attack later. No wonder this is one of Fischer's absolute memorable games, featured in his 60 memorable games book. Okay, thanks so much. Hi there. I hope you enjoyed that game sample. It's actually from my course, which you can find at the Kingscrusher TV page, which has great discounts. It's the Italian game Mastery, the Ideal Beginner's Opening. So just very briefly, if we click there, you can also see other free sample videos. Just do expand all sections, and you can see these preview links if you want to see other free previews and get an idea of the course yourself. I'm going to keep it short here. Just basically to say I had a fantastic time seeing many brilliant games in the Italian game. You can see from the number of collections how epic some of these games are, that they've been collected like hundreds of times at chessgames.com. And yeah, I really hope you check out this index and may consider getting the course. Okay. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks so much.